if I asked you offense, defense, special teams with the Bills, Chiefs, Eagles, Commanders, who has the singular best unit remaining in football?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think I would probably go with the Chiefs defense.
See, that's what I said. But let me tell you how I talked myself out of it. I'm glad you said that. Air high five. Because I said this yesterday. But then I looked, and I'm like, okay, I guess statistically, if I was going to go with a defense, I would say maybe Philly because they are slightly better across the board. But the Chiefs just seem to be more dominant with theirs. That was kind of the distinguishing thing. Because it wasn't going to be the Commanders' offense. I thought about that. But I felt good saying the Chiefs' defense.
Yeah, I mean they're really something. They're tenacious and they're very physical.
God, they
really get after the passer. And at home, they're really hard to stop. So I think if you put a game, where's the Super Bowl this year? Is it in a dome?
Is it Arizona?
I don't even know.
New Orleans. That's right. It's in New Orleans.
Yeah, so dome.
Yeah. That defense won't be as good in a dome. If you make it 70 degrees and you get rid of all the elements, it's going to be easier to move the football in general, which I don't really have a problem with for the national title games or the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
The national title games on my mind tonight. But, yeah, so I think the Chiefs defense, they're pretty salty. I don't know. Is Chris Jones the best overall player on defense of the last 4 teams that are in? I think so.
So the interesting thing about him is it doesn't matter what you need him to do, right? Rush the passer, stop the run. He can play all along the line. He's so complete. It's ridiculous. He can play a 1, he can play a 3, he can get in a 4. You can't really run at him. He's incredible.
Yeah. He really is. He's a Hall of Famer, and he's a great player.
Ooh,
he's really underrated in some ways because people haven't been talking about him as much as they should have.
Remember this conversation in the preseason? Mm-hmm. I asked if Chris Jones was a Hall of Famer. You're pretty emphatic about that. I got a little pushback. Oh, yeah. I don't know. I guess maybe if they win it this year, you think right now if he stopped playing, he's a Hall of Famer?
I don't think he's going to stop playing, but yeah, I do.
Huh.
Yep. I think the way that they want to the way they kind of put that thing together, a Super Bowl is going to help you, and it's going to help you immensely. Winning Super Bowls, I think, is super important. Now, of course, there are players who never even go to the Super Bowl that are all-timers. But, if you're telling me that Cortez Kennedy, who I thought was a great player, is in the Hall of Fame, and it took him a while, but if he's in there, yeah, Chris Jones is in there. If Charles Haley's in there, and again, they're different players, Chris Jones is in there. He is going to be the one defensive player off that unit that I feel most confident will be acknowledged as a Hall of Famer. Obviously, on the offensive side of the ball, you'll have Mahomes, and you'll have Kelsey, and you'll have Tyreek Hill from the days when he was there. On defense, I think you will have Chris Jones, and I think that's it.
Hey, Sam, off the top of your head, how many double-digit sack seasons do you think Chris Jones has?
I don't know. Not that many. 4 or 5.
3.
How many?
3.
Yeah. Which, is – I think you're going to see a question here in about 5 to 10 and Ndamukong Suh is not going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, I don't think. But it'll be interesting to see what his voting is based on A, the fact that he was early in his career, he was completely dominant. B, he won a Super Bowl. And C, there are a couple of incidents that he had in his pro career where, people were not happy with the way that he handled something on the field, stepping on a guy's arm or whatever. But I think Ndamukong Suh is going to be a borderline Hall of Fame candidate. So yes, Chris Jones will be there for sure.
DB, there was a topic. No, there was a lot in there that Sam was talking about, but there was one thing that I kind of got wrapped around my noodle here. And so we were talking about Chris Jones, Hall of Fame, not Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that was interesting.
He seemed pretty sure.
Yeah, I'm more sure on Suh.
You seemed less sure on Chris Jones.
I'm not like I think I worry about his overall statistics.
Okay.
Like you have to watch him.
Yes. So I think that's the case with a lot of defensive tackles.
Because
Fair?
Yeah. I mean, he's clearly disruptive, but like with forced fumbles, I think he's only got. This is a while ago, so I know I'm within one or two. He's got about 80 sacks.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's got 12 or 13 forced fumbles. When you look at like disruptive, like hard data, I don't know. I think you have to watch him to appreciate him. But I'm more sure that Suh is a Hall of Famer.
So for reference,
and somebody even said it, but like he's on the All-Century team.
So
Suh,
you're right on 80 sacks for Jones.
80, right?
About 80 tackles for loss as well, and 13 forced fumbles. Suh, for comparison, only 71.5 sacks. Now he does have 130 tackles for loss, so he's significantly higher there.
It's incredible.
And then I got to find his forced fumbles. But so there's only 5 forced fumbles for Suh. So they're in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like Suh, significantly more tackles for loss.
And Chris Jones is going to have more hardware.
Yes. Chris Jones, significantly more forced fumbles. And he's 3 years behind in terms of how long he's played. No-brainer Hall of Famer Warren Sapp, right? He's in, but like at the time.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I was wondering.
No question. Like that's not even a debate for anybody, right? Yeah. For comparison's sake, 96 sacks, 91 tackles for loss. And he's several years ahead of where Chris Jones is at.
Sapp had 96 sacks?
Yeah.
As an interior lineman?
Yeah.
Seems like a lot.
Not a lot, not as many as Aaron Donald, but
I would not have guessed that for Sapp.
I'm trying to find some other ones here that are good examples. How do you feel about Bryant Young?
Different kind of game.
Yeah. I'm just going positionally here.
I know, but it was such a different kind of game.
Yeah.
He was dominant.
Mm-hmm.
Probably for about the same amount of time. Because we would say Chris Jones has been dominant for, again,
a little late bloomer.
Okay, so I'm having this is like real time.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like in my head he's been probably what I would call dominant about 4 or 5 years. Is that too short a span?
Probably. So his big breakout was his 3rd year in the league. He had 15.5 sacks.
What year was that? 18?
That was 18.
Okay.
And then he goes 9 sacks, goes to the Pro Bowl next year. Then he's been first or second team All-Pro for the last 5 years. But he did have that 15.5 hanging out there 2 years before that. So it's like truly, truly dominant, probably at least 5.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't. I think he's sensational. So I don't. I mean, if he was in the Hall of Fame, I wouldn't be like, oh, no, he doesn't belong. Like, I just watch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's all I usually watch is the interior line.
Yeah.
On both sides. But now I watch secondary a lot more, too.
Sure.
Just because of how hard it is to get stops.
Yeah.
And I look at this guys now in late movement, but he just, I watch him and sometimes I just shake my head.
Yeah.
I must have paused probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 games in the last 10 days since Caleb was home. And I would pause it like at the snap and I would be like, look at the D line here versus the O line. What do you think when we would try to guess the result of the play based on just pausing it and the initial.
Yeah. Like the initial push.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost uncanny what really happens. Now, occasionally you'll have these good running backs where you'll be like, wow, how'd they not make that tackle in the backfield? And they get so vertical with their D-line that it ends up being a house call like Saquon Barkley. But
yeah.
Fudge.
Last one here. The guy that Sam brought up, Cortez Kennedy. Pretty clear Hall of Famer for most people. Only 58 sacks.
Yeah, different game.
Only 15 tackles for loss.
Yeah.
11 forced fumbles. So asked to do different things, right? But just if you're going statistically, which it's hard at defensive tackle.
I don't mind the Sapp comp because Sapp got to play a lot. He got to do a lot of different things along.
Yeah, they moved him around
like
a little
Chris
bit.
Jones.
Yeah. And, if he plays, Sapp played 12, 13 full years. So if Chris Jones plays 3 or 4 more, he probably gets to those numbers.
Yeah, and I felt bad for Matty DeMarinis because he's watching the Texans and he's so mad at that offensive line and a couple of the A-gap blitzes and stuff. And I'm like, look where they put Chris. Like that was Spags was doing that by design. It looks really obvious on television. Like, oh my gosh, just step here.
Yeah.
But you got to look at how he personneled it too. Like, it's a really well coached unit.
It's the same thing we see on offense, right? Where people scheme guys into looks, right? We don't talk about it nearly as much on defense, especially not on the defensive line. But it's really easy to be like, oh, well, why do you have a linebacker covering so and so, or why did safety get switched off onto Tyreek Hill? And it's like that's literally everything the offense was working towards getting that right matchup.
And I'm sure, like in the game plans and stuff, it's like, hey, 95, commands a double or doesn't get the single or stay big on big. Like they have their rules when you game plan game records.
Yeah,
that's why some of those schemes work.
But there's also a reason they're game wreckers is a lot of times the schemes don't work.
Yeah.
they literally wreck the game.